I'm Russ Kickle, and on this episode of American Reef, Tim's battling some RTN issues. So it's been a few years since we've checked out Tim's beautiful 400-gallon reef. And though it is still beautiful, Tim's battling some issues. One of them, it's been RTN now for probably a year, year and a half, something like that. And he also had a Kalk overdose. Right? So I figure, hey, now's as good as time as any, so we can kind of pick his brain and see how somebody with his experience is kind of handling these kind of situations. Again, remember, as new hobbyists, that's our goal, right? We want to learn from others so we don't have to make the same mistakes. And in this particular case, the mistakes will happen. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So to that point, right, again, we'll do that update video next. And, with that Kalk kind of overdosing going on, one thing to keep in mind is Bulk Reef Supply just released a video on actually the best ways to dose Kalk. Again, they have kind of a good, better, best approach to it. And ultimately, it's one of those things where they use an Apex to do the monitoring. And we know that I'm not a huge fan for new hobbyists to get like the Neptune Apex for life support. Right. However, for monitoring, I think it's excellent. Right. And, that Bulk Reef Supply video is actually a good example of the best ways to kind of use that Neptune Apex to monitor, to make sure you can catch things before they go awry, so to speak. So again, great video there, especially if you're new to the hobby, thinking about dosing Kalk. And then the second one is, I'm a huge fan of the algae reactor from Tunzi. And again, with the Premium Aquatics Tank Series video, Luke did a really good job at kind of not only showing what that reactor looks like, but what kind of growth you get out of that media, right, or actually out of the media reactor itself over a period of 1 to 2 months, right, with the algae. So you can kind of see that. And luckily enough, the reactor is so simple that even his kids who are in the video can help change it, which is kind of cool as well. Right. And then lastly, I don't know if you guys follow Reef to Reef, but if you do, it's a great forum. And on there's a thread from Top Shelf Aquatics. Well, this past weekend, for example, I know they had a flash winter sale, right? It's a great place to kind of see what's going on at Top Shelf Aquatics. We already know that they not only offer some of the best prices on corals, but some of the most unique, coolest corals on the planet. Right, so again, if you're not checking out that thread, check it out. It's over on Reef to Reef, and again, it's Top Shelf Aquatics. Now let's check out Tim's 400-gallon reef tank.
Tim, I'll start this off the same way I started the last time. You're looking good.
Yeah, you too, man. You too.
So another year. That's what I was going to say. Another year, right? We get older, but we never change our looks in any way, shape, or form.
Well, we'll see how it goes. We've got a few more years left.
Yeah, I think this is going for me.
Zoom in at the top of my bald head, my forehead, my head.
So let's talk tank, because you were saying, holy cow, like we were going to do an interview, the beginning of the year, right? You sent over some video, which was awesome and it was beautiful, and you said like everything went to hell.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Dude, I just had a weird year, 2020, in addition to the COVID. I think I got reef COVID also, and went through a ton of stuff with my tanks. Lots of corals dying. Other corals remaining unaffected, and it was just really frustrating because every day I'd wake up and I don't know who would be dead or who would be on the way out. And it was really frustrating. But what do you do?
Well, what about the fish? Fish were okay?
Yeah, fish were okay. The fish did fine. But whatever was going through my reef wasn't only killing my SPS, it was like knocking out Monties. I had Monties that were starting to RTN. I had a softie, I think it was a Kenyan leather coral or Kenyan or Japanese Nephthia coral in my frag tank. It died also. So, I mean, I thought those things were pretty much indestructible.
Right.
But whatever was going on took that thing out too in my frag tank, and the water's all interconnected through the sump. So, who knows? It was must have been something off with either contamination or bacteria. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure, but you know, I'm thinking about it. It's been a couple of years. I think we did not interview in 2019, and maybe not even in 2018. I can't remember the last video when it was at.
To your point, I think probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
About 2 years, yeah.
I'm thinking, right? Something like that. Well, okay, so how long did the whole, like, you know, again, tank crashing, RTN kind of stuff happen? I mean, how long did it go on for?
You know, it really started in around, like, after I'd put up essentially some videos somewhere in April or May. I noticed a couple things starting to RTN.
Right.
But yeah, it went pretty much until October of this year, of 2020. And I thought I was out of the woods. I mean, October, everything seemed to kind of turn. And now we are in December, and I looked at my tank the other day, a couple weeks ago, and I had one coral that's been in my tank for a solid 7 years, and it started to go. So it's just like, shoot, what the heck is going on here?
Right.
Other corals that I've had for a long time, they just go. I mean, I mark them down in my spreadsheet as like 30% RTN, right? And maybe they'll come back. Sometimes there's always a chance that it takes just one speck of tissue to make it.
Right.
And it'll come back. But it's really frustrating to see it happen because, you know, the polyps are intact, the colors look good, and the tissue just floats away with the polyp in there. And it's so frustrating. And, man, when it goes, it's like wildfire. I mean, I lost a big Paletta pink tip, that big colony that I had, which is like right here, which is all skeleton and dead right now.
Yeah.
It was a solid, 9-inch diameter colony. And that thing went up in flames in a matter of 4 days. Once it started to go, it just goes, a little bit here, a little bit there, and the colors look great. And you think it's going to come back, and then poof, it's gone. So it's really frustrating. But,
yeah, it is. And okay, so in general terms, you have no clue what was going on, right? So
I have a general. I think I might know what caused it. It was 2019 was a really good year for the tank. I mean, it was doing great. I was making tons of frags. Everything was growing really, really good until the end of 2019 and on Black Friday. So November of 2019, I had a kalkwasser incident. I got overzealous. I loaded up too much kalkwasser into my kalk stirrer. Basically filled it up halfway when I normally only fill it up at 25%, because I thought, well, I want to get a little bit lazy and not have to get in there and put more in and top it off so frequently. So stupid me, I was overzealous and learned a very expensive lesson and a very painful lesson. So it filled up basically halfway full of kalk. I went to the gym at 9 a.m., came back at 10:15 that morning on Black Friday, and my tank was nuclear white. It looked like a bomb had gone off. My fish died. I lost a lot of old fish that I'd had for 10 years plus. I had lost some really precious fish that were like family to me. And it really, really sucked. So what happened was that, the tank basically turned white. All the corals were slowing off stuff. There was just slime everywhere. The kalkwasser was so thick inside the aquarium that you couldn't even see through the tank. Wow. I mean, it was like your worst nightmare. I basically was in shock for the first 15 minutes. I couldn't process what was going on. I was just like, okay, my kalk is constantly topping off, but why is it not stopping?
Right.
Because the slurry was so thick that it actually jammed the water top off, the little float valve.
So it kept on dumping it in.
It just kept on going. Yeah, it was pure. Really, it was like a thick slurry.
Oh.
And you couldn't even see in the tank. So it was just, it was a disaster. You can see, like, when the fish were dying, they'd get close to the glass or to the side of the tank, and you can kind of see their silhouette. So they were just like ghosts. It was really, really sad. And I was basically in shock. I did not know what to do. So immediately I figured the only thing I can do is basically start doing some water changes. So I started making up some water. I called some of my good friends that are relatively close that I know have big tanks, and they usually have water, RODI water available.
Right.
Called them up. They came over and trucked over at least 200 gallons of water for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I still had to mix up the water in bins and heat it up too, because I couldn't put it in cold because their water was pretty cold.
Sure.
But
how do you heat up 200 gallons quickly?
I had to go to the store and buy a ton of heaters. So
right.
Yeah, I bought a ton of heaters. I was like, I don't care what this costs. I have to try and save my tank because I wanted the water to be somewhat close to the temperature wise.
Right.
And it was during it was during the winter time, so the water was cold when they would drive it over. But we did the best we could, and over Saturday or sorry about that. No. Between Friday and Saturday, I just did probably about 200 gallons of water changes.
Mm-hmm.
And by Sunday time, you can actually see in the tank a little bit. I mean, it wasn't clear or anything like that, but you could see in the tank. The corals did not look too pissed off, honestly. The SPS seemed okay. It was more of the fish. That man, it was bad. I don't even want to think about it. I get pissed off. But so what I noticed is that, after I did even more water changes and kind of stabilized it and got all of the Kalk out of it so you can kind of see, and I ran some carbon, the corals seemed to be okay. But what I noticed in December was that all the sponges that I had grown, all the black and the yellow sponges and gray sponges, gone.
Whoa.
They were all gone. So this Kalk was so strong that it pretty much took out all my microfauna. It took out all the sponges.
Right.
So I think maybe that could have caused some problems there too. Because for sponge to die, I'm sure it releases stuff. I don't know what's actually what stays inside of it. And just now, I mean, it's been a year later. So that was November, December of 19 to just now. I'm seeing the black sponge come back and the gray sponge come back.
Uh-huh.
So it took over a year for the sponges to come back from deep. I'm guessing they came back from deep within the rock, somewhere in there. A couple spores left or something. But
Well, okay. So when you had the event happen, right? Okay. You said after, a few days of all the water changes, you could start to see things turn around, so to speak, as far as the water, right? At what point in time did you think, okay, the bleeding is stopped?
I thought the bleeding kind of stopped in probably January. January of 2020.
That long. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, because it was pretty traumatic. I mean, I had to do a ton of water changes to get all the Kalk out. The corals, most of the corals seemed okay as far as the SPS. They seemed okay, but again, I lost a ton of sponges, so there was probably stuff happening at the the microscopic level that was being released or that was dying still, that was decaying. It was really weird. It was a very weird situation. So that led into 2020.
Mm-hmm.
January, and it seemed okay. I mean, the SPS seemed to be okay. And then I don't know what happened between January and COVID. When COVID started in March, I can tell you what else I kind of screwed up on, because from January to March, the tank seemed to be okay, minus the sponges and my dead fish that I had lost. So when COVID hit, basically we were all stuck indoors. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm stuck inside. The tank seems to be doing great. Let me start dinking around with things. So I started adding amino acids. I added some trace elements that I've had sitting in my closet for well over 3 years. That probably expired. I don't want to say their brand or anything because, you know, it's my fault. I probably shouldn't have put these things in. They're pretty old. And I started feeding the tank some coral foods that I had mixed up and bought.
Sure.
And just because I was inside, I was like, oh, I'm going to really keep an eye on this thing. So I'm going to get some good colors and, you know, increase the colors, increase the growth. And I think I just overloaded the tank. I probably put too much in there at once.
Right.
And it started to go downhill really quick. I would say maybe like 2 months after I began that stuff.
Really?
So May, June. Yeah, it's perfect timing. Around June is when I started getting all this algae coming through. And it was just like it was like a nutrient sink. And then that's when the RTN started to come too. My nitrates were really high. My nitrates got up to like 60.
Okay.
When I normally try and keep them around 30. They had spiked up pretty high.
Sure.
And then a couple other things that when this hair algae was coming through, I was just like, well, let me try and just kind of battle the symptoms. So what I did was I went to one of the local stores and bought a couple of those sea slugs that eat the hair algae. I forgot the names. Whatever they are. Yeah. You know, they kind of cruise around the tank. Sea lettuce hairs or whatever they're called. Sea hairs.
Yeah.
Sea hairs.
Yep.
So I bought a couple of those. Those things ended up dying. I couldn't even find them. They wouldn't come out at night. And I found one of the dead bodies stuck on a power head, and I was like, man, that thing probably just released a ton of toxins into the tank also. So me trying to dink around and make things better ended up probably screwing myself in the long run. With all this stuff happening. And it was just, you know, it's sometimes you just want to throw in the towel and just stop. And it's kind of like, that's where it is right now. I'm just like, well, I'm just going to let this thing just do its thing now. I'm doing a water change every other week. 20% water change every other week. There's no sea hairs in there. There's something like that. You know, I thought everything was on the mend. The colors right now look really good. The growth is happening because my alk is dropping. So I'm having to increase my alkalinity a little bit here to make up for it. So I know growth is happening, but then again, I've just this morning or just this week, I had a couple pieces that, you know, started to RTN. So maybe I'm not out of the woods yet. Who knows? Who knows?
Well, you know, Mike was having that problem too. He was basically one of the tanks that he was setting up was the Elos tank, and again, he was going not live rock, right? It was all just dried and all that.
Yeah.
And I mean, and he basically chalked, we'll say 2 to 3 years of just couldn't keep anything alive, right? He chalked it up to bacteria, right?
Yeah.
I guess there were probably 2 or 3 fellow reefers that I guess when he was over in Germany, you know, they had some good talks, and they all experienced the same thing when certain types of bacteria or whatever they weren't existent on the dry rock, obviously, when they put it in the tank. And then even though it was seeded with rock out of his tank, it obviously takes a while for it to seed. And anyway, again, it was years before he could actually do anything. And again, to this day, he's like, hey, maybe somebody knows something better, but he believes it was bacteria.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot of people around here that start their tanks off with dead rock, that mine stuff, that really white stuff.
Right.
And it's basically dead and inert. And I told him, this is how this tank started off. I mean, this tank here is now, I think, 8 or 9 years old now. And the first year, I couldn't grow any SPS. Chalices did fine, but no SPS. Monty's kind of did okay, but it took a long time for the rock to get covered in coralline and bacteria, basically, for the system to kind of get stable after about a year.
Yeah, it's wild though, because you said you even lost your softie, right? Like, was it a Kenya tree? I don't know what it, but
It was a Japanese Nepia that I got
okay.
from a friend.
Yeah. So to your point,
Pretty resilient.
yeah, exactly. I thought like a nuclear holocaust would occur and it'd still be around.
Yeah, I have that chili pepper Monty cap that it's been growing for years in here, and it started at RTN too. And I'm like, that cap never goes. I mean,
Right.
I wish that stuff would have killed all that rainbow Monty that I have that's at the bottom of my tank that's now creeping up. That stuff was living just fine.
Right.
But I had other Monties, like a Tyree Undata, a super old school Monty. I mean, it was probably about a 4-inch colony that I was regrowing that I had acquired a frag from. It was growing back, and then when the Kalk washer thing hit, between that and May, it died. So, I mean, it totally died. And then just now, I look in there, and there's a tiny speck. So, there's a tiny speck of it coming back. So,
right.
And it's a Monty, it's an Undata. So,
right.
There's something else. I should just get the Triton test. Not the Triton, but is it the Triton test?
Yeah.
They did the ICP analysis.
Yeah.
I did have a friend offer me to do that, and I said I would do it with them. He had a test kit ready, but I never followed up. That was my fault. My friend Eric. So I should probably just do that now because I have a little bit of RTN happening. My test kits say everything's within parameters. My alk's at like 9.5. The phosphate's at like 0.03, 0.04. The nitrates are at like 30. Salinity is at 1.025. Magnesium's about 1,400. So it's like, what else am I supposed to do here?
Well, see, that's one nice thing about that whole Triton stuff, because again, there's all kind of things that are measured that you're like, what do you mean silica, copper based, blah, blah, blah. So some of that stuff, I know, again, Mike did the exact same thing. He ended up where he got a couple of reports and they'd be like, okay, it didn't help him at all. Yeah. But at the same time, there were a lot of things that report showed that I think if you wanted to, again, roll your sleeves up, you could probably get to the bottom of, what's happened. Not that you can necessarily fix it, right?
Right. Yeah. At least it'll give you maybe some indicators to kind of look at, things that might seem way out of parameters or way out of the norm. I don't know what it was, man. Whatever.
Right.
I mean, for it to kill a Nepia and my Montes also, and now cause RTN on some corals that I've had for years. I mean, some of these corals I've had for like 5 or 6 years, so it's not like they're brand new frags. I mean, that Paletta pink tip colony, you guys have basically seen grow to this 9-inch, table,
right?
And it's not like it's new, so it seems like it's going after like some of the things that have been in there a long time. And I lost the big old purple Ostera that's always been in the middle of the tank. It started to go, which I'm not, I chopped it up anyways because I was like, well, it's kind of blocking flow anyway. So I took that out and it started to grow and when it started to RTN. But then there's a little speck of it that lives, so now it's coming back. So what do you do? Water changes, about it.
Well, that's just it, right? Well, okay, so, it's funny, though, in the grand scheme of things, to your point, I was talking with Roger Vitko, right? And he had similar issues as far as, unfortunately, things will kind of wipe the tank out a little bit. And it's amazing to your point, basically months after, theoretically this whole colony is just wiped out, a speck will start growing up through and you're like, wow, it survived. How did that work?
Something made it through.
Right.
A little bit of tissue that you didn't see, or I didn't see, somewhere where it like snaked down through somewhere else, and then it made it through.
Right. It's amazing. Okay, so in general, end of 2019 and 2020 sucked for your tank.
Yeah, that end of 2019 was a disaster brought upon myself because I felt confident and wanted to make things easier, and I screwed it up.
Right.
So to all your viewers out there, it happens to people that have been doing it for years. I mean,
Right.
you get a little lazy, you try and make things more efficient, and man, I cannot believe an hour and a half or hour and 15 minutes away from this tank caused a cascading disaster.
Right. Right.
And then constantly chasing to try and bring it back. And in 2019, or yeah, at the end of 2019, 2020 rolls around. It seems to have stabilized between January and March, and everything looks okay. I didn't have any major die-off or RTN, so I start dumping this, dumping that into the tank to try and feed it. Watching a lot of videos on YouTube because I'm bored. Everyone's bored at home.
Right.
You got nothing to do.
Right.
So you're stuck in front of your aquarium thinking, okay, how can I make this better? Or,
Right.
you know, let me mess around with this because I haven't added these elements in years. And lo and behold, that might have cost it. So I don't know.
It's so funny because, like, to your point, like, I'll watch some of the videos that like BRS put out, like, you know, with, you know, Ryan and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they'll prove that, you know, again, amino acids, right, will take and color, you know, make your corals colorful. So to your point, I'll run out, boom, man, I'll buy a gallon. I don't care what it is. Let's go. Let's try that.
Yeah, you're at home. You might as well just order it. You ain't got nowhere else to go. Most of the fish stores are very limited hours.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I spend a lot. I spend a lot of. I bought some coral foods I thought would be okay, but maybe they grew some kind of bacteria because one of them was it was supposed to grow some bacteria also. It was like a coral food, but it added bacteria, and maybe that had something to do with it too. Maybe I used too much of it. Whatever happened, I mean, that hair algae started coming through,
right?
March and April, and then I added the sea hairs, and those probably dying. I'm like, that probably released a bunch of stuff also. And
yeah, there's a lot of toxins in those hairs.
Yeah, and I didn't know a lot about those guys. I thought they were pretty cool looking.
They are.
I found one of them stuck in a power head. I was like, uh-oh, that ain't good. He was like stuck in the J valve, probably spewing his freaking guts out across the tank for who knows how long, probably overnight.
Exactly.
So contamination there also. I do think I'm going to do the Triton once Christmas is over and all that.
Right.
When shipping kind of gets back to normal, maybe in January.
Right.
Everyone catches up on shipping and all that.
Right.
I'll probably send out for a Triton test kit just to see if there's something glaring.
Right.
Maybe there's something leaching from my canopy. Maybe there's paint that's coming through or something, or some kind of metal, something.
Right.
Tin or something like that.
Right. Right.
Don't know. I just don't know.
Anything's possible. Before the Kalkwasser, right? Did you make any changes at all in the tank? Because I know you were playing around with the frag tank a little bit. You kind of redid that a while back, right?
Yeah.
And
nothing. No, I mean, the tank was doing great. All 2019, like I was saying, it did wonderful. I changed out my Ocean Relive lights. I think I changed those every 5 years. I added a couple new ones and replaced out the old ones, but there's no way that would have caused like problems in my frag tank, things like that. Just changing the lights,
right?
Replace some J-Bow power heads. Those are only good for like a year and a half.
Yeah, exactly.
Just stop working, and then you stick your finger in there to try to spin the propeller, or you put it in vinegar and hope for the best. And you know, when you're sticking your finger in there trying to get that prop to turn, you're like, man, this thing better not come on and chop my slice me up.
It's so funny because, to your point, sometimes it does come on, it catches that tip, and you're like, oh, I knew that was going to happen, right?
Yep, and you're just happy when it runs. But eventually, when they start locking up like that, you know you're on borrowed time. It's just a matter of time for the motor dies out.
Yeah.
But no equipment, nothing major for 2019. No, I meant for most of the year, it was humming along really good. And I was making a lot of frags for people and getting my stuff out there.
Right.
Yeah, it was a good year. But,
yeah, and there you go. Right.
Yeah. Peaks and valleys. That's the way this hobby is. I mean, sometimes you'll go years, things will do great.
Right.
I call it a curse. I think I might mention it to you. It's like I don't like to take a lot of pictures of my tank, and when it's doing good, and I put them up on Facebook or some of the old reef sites, because I think it curses it. I think it's like a jinx. I swear, man, it will knock you down from elation to deflation.
It's true. It is. It is so true. I agree with you 1,000%. Right?
Yeah.
Anytime I try to do any kind of update videos on the tanks, I'll get beautiful video, and then within 2, 3, 4 weeks, something will happen.
Yeah.
Right.
It's part of the game. It's kind of like I know I have a weird feeling things like that happen sometimes, and I just try not to do it too often. But man, when the tank is, everyone knows their system. No one knows their tank's better than themselves.
Right.
So for me, when it's humming along, I'm like, dude, I'll tell my friends, I'm like, dude, this thing is popping. You need to come over here and take a look. I mean, it's you might have 2 or 3 weeks where it looks like this, where it's like a pure foliage and it's just incredible colors.
Right.
And it's popping and everything's growing. But then, something happens.
Then drops. Oh, man.
Yeah. And it's weird. Some of the RTN I had really knocked out some of my tenuouses that I've had for a long time. The Orange Passions. I've had those. I've had those for like 4 years. Grew them out to decent sized colonies, 4 or 5 inches.
Right.
And it would like take out 2 different colonies of the same thing at opposite ends of the tank within days.
Right.
So it must have been some kind of chemical or contamination.
Yeah, something, right?
Yeah. And I lost my sexy corals orange passion colonies that I've had for many, many years. Luckily, I got frags out there with a bunch of friends that I can get it back.
Right.
But I had 2 colonies of it, one at far ends of the tank, and they both went up in flames within 2 days. So it's so weird how that works. All these little chemical markers or whatever's in the water.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So to that point, are you deflated? Right.
Yeah. I'm deflated this month because I just looked a few days ago, and I just saw some more, and I was like, shit, man, I thought I was like out of the woods here, and like I'm losing a Sniper SPS pink dragontails colony, and I've got a huge colony in my frag tank. It's doing great, and I've got 2 colonies in the display that are within 6 inches of each other. One of them is doing fantastic. It's actually on the side of the tank, or on the it's inflated, encrusted onto the wall of the tank, so it's doing great. But the other one that is 6 inches from it, just RTN. Over the last 2 days, it just peeled.
Right.
So, and then I have my orange setosa. Everyone has that. I mean, that coral's been in our trade for at least probably a good 10, 12 years now. The orange setosa. Parts of it are turning white. I'm like, it's a setosa, man. Everyone has this coral. This thing has been genetically in our captivity for years. So maybe the contamination's back, or maybe one of my pumps is leaching something.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe there's something in my plumbing.
Right.
Well, also, okay, so I'm guilty. I think I've told you before, I don't have a pH monitor.
Right.
So I should probably, I should bite my tongue and go out and borrow a pH monitor from a friend, or go out and buy one off Amazon or something like that, and just see what the pH is. Maybe that's the issue, because, in January of this year, we had some really bad, 2020, we had some really bad fires out here in California. I mean, it was just, you would be lucky to have some clean air and be able to see blue sky for 2 days in a row. It was nothing but fire. So all the homes have been sealed up. Everyone's just running their air conditioner. So there's no fresh air coming in.
Right.
Maybe that had something to do with it now. We're in the winter time out here right now, and it's pretty cold. I mean, relatively cold. It's in the low 30s overnight. And it's been cold, so I haven't been opening my windows either.
Right.
So maybe I've got a low pH issue or a high CO2 issue in my house.
Right.
I don't know. I should probably get a pH monitor from a buddy and just go check.
I was going to say, I'll send you one down. I got one that I use once a year. And I'll send you that and some calibration fluid, right?
Is it the pinpoint one? The pinpoint?
Exactly, yeah.
It's got the probe and...
Exactly. It's got the temperature, pH, and I use it to calibrate like the probes that I have in the tank.
Yeah.
So
I'll, you know what? If I might hit you up on that. I might take you up on that, but I'm sure some of the locals will be willing to help me out. I'll just reach out to them because I don't want whatever's happening. Maybe it's coming back again, man. Maybe it's like COVID, right? Maybe it's like, okay, we thought it was going to get a little bit better in the fall and in the summertime, and now maybe it's like this next version that's coming out during the winter, the second wave of it.
Yeah. to your earlier point. That's right. You've got COVID tank, right? COVID Reef. Oh, man.
One other thing that did break, now I think about it also. I just thought about this. This could be an issue. I had that bioreactor, that big red bioreactor.
Yes.
I ended up taking that offline. I'll have to look at when I took that offline. But it might have been like a month before November of 2019. So it might have been before the Kalkwasser thing. And I took it offline because my air pump stopped working so good. So I couldn't get the media in there to turn.
Right.
And I'd gone through a couple of different new air pumps, and I still couldn't get the media to turn. So maybe that had something to do with it too. And then I just took it offline because the pump was a Mag 9.5, and it was kind of buzzing. It was kind of loud.
Yeah.
I just basically took the whole thing down. Maybe that had something to do with it also. That loss of all the bacteria that was growing in that cylinder with all the red. That could have had something to do with it also.
Yeah. Yeah, again, like I said, Mike swears it's a bacterial issue, like a lot of the RTN kind of stuff in his
Yeah. And that would kind of, I might have just solved my own problem right there. Because if I'll have to look on my log sheet when I did that, when I took that Bashy reactor offline, because that's a lot of bacteria that I probably just stopped within.
Right.
So I'll double check that. See.
Right. And I mean, it's a food source, and and it provides all kind of, again, antibodies, or not necessarily antibodies. What's the exact word?
Anaerobic.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That could have been related to that too. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Right.
That was basically equipment. So I need to reach out to Bashy.
So now, as far as like the maintenance, you said you were doing like 20% water changes now, still very regularly and consistently, right?
Yeah.
And it's not helping, right?
Yeah. I mean, it seemed to really help. I mean, I would say I was having the RTN issues up until October of 2020 of this year. And I let a lot of my friends know, because they were just like, "Hey, can I come over and see the tank?" I'm like, I don't feel comfortable showing you what I'm going through right now. It's freaking embarrassing. And a lot of people were asking to buy frags. I'm like, I'm not going to frag anything until I somewhat get this under control. And so, I mean, things did start to change. Around October. It kind of, you would see encrusting that I wasn't seeing encrusting before. The polyps were out a lot more. So, and I was doing a lot of water changes. I mean, I was doing weekly water changes when I was going through the issues, just hoping to dilute the contamination, whatever was causing it. I don't know.
Right.
Just throwing water change. I mean, I bought so much money, spent so much money in reef crystal salt.
Sure.
And I was just getting that stuff shipped to me like crazy. Every other week, I would get like another 10 bags of that stuff. I was going through a lot.
Right. Yeah, it's so funny because, like, to your point, I don't know, like for me, like with the water changes, I still do my 2 gallon a day. It's a natural thing. But I've noticed a big difference from the salt perspective. I was always a tropic marine dude, blah, 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 blah. And then when I started going to reef crystals, I noticed my bins being a little more, we'll say it, dirtier for the lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I had a couple corals actually just pop with beauty, right? And it's the only thing I changed. And I'm like, I don't know what's in there, but I started using reef crystals. Like, it was obviously cheaper, which is nicer, right?
Yeah. They responded well to that caking agent, whatever that stuff is.
Exactly.
The world wanted that. Some kind of mineral in there or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, reef crystals will do that. If you don't stay on top of your bins where you mix it, I wipe down the bins probably like every 3 weeks.
Sure.
You'll get like a brown crud.
Yes.
That kind of accumulates on the sides and the bottom.
Yep.
And, I thought it was just a caking agent or something precipitates out if it's mixed. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've been probably using it now for 5 years. I'll say 5-ish years or something like that. And I'm only cleaning the reservoir once a year. I'm like, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
At first, my argument was, listen, it's not like I wipe it down and put it back in the column. It sticks on the side.
Right. Yeah. It's like, what harm can it cause?
Exactly. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I've got these two. Remember the CO power heads, the older ones that blast like, I don't know, way too much. Anyway, I'm blasting stuff everywhere, and as I keep it mixing, I'm like, yeah, right. It's sticking to the sides, huh?
Yeah, it's all stirring up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I don't know what else to do at this point. I'm just gonna keep doing the water changes and keep my fingers crossed. If I just stay on top of my maintenance a little bit more and do the water changes every other week. These latest ones that just started to go, I'm like, I would say about 40% of the colony of my Reef Wrap USA Orange Passion is RTN. And it's sad because it's like the part that hasn't RTN yet is gorgeous. I mean, the colors are freaking amazing. It is like the polyps are there. The color of the body is just like this yellow, and it's got the blue in there and some orange. It's just I don't know what's happening at the tissue level, whatever is causing that, at the bacterial level or the algae level that's inside the skin of the corals.
Right.
But if Mike thinks it's bacteria, it probably is. I mean, he's been doing it a lot longer than I have, and he's probably seen and done and experienced some of these random RTN things that just come through like wildfire. One thing I've been thinking about doing, and I still have not done it, is setting up a refugium. Maybe that'll help with running Cato or something like that. Or heck, I might even try some of that Langside Miracle Mud. I mean, I'm throwing everything but the kitchen sink at this thing. I haven't done any ICP like dosing or any of the tripe stuff. Kind of old school. I try not to do that stuff unless I'm obviously bored, which is what I did when COVID started. I usually don't like to dink around with things.
Right. Well, again, you had a recipe that works.
Yeah.
Mostly, right? Mostly works, right?
But when it goes downhill, man, it's kind of like a big boulder. It's hard to stop once that thing gets momentum. And I don't know how long I'm going to be going through this. So I'll check back with you in a few months and say, okay, well, the corals that were dying have seemed to recover, or I'll send you some pictures of some white skeletons.
What is it, Halloween? Right.
Yeah. My little bucket of bones.
Right.
We all got them. They're out in the backyard. Everybody's got them. If anyone's been doing SPS corals, everyone's got their stash of bones.
It's true. That's so true. Well, good deal, sir. So, again, I appreciate you spending the time on, the holiday season, so to speak, to kind of go over this. And
yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you guys and all your viewers out there.
Yeah, very much so, right? And to that point, we'll catch up in the springtime, so to speak, and then if anybody calls with a purple monster, send them your way.
Sounds good, Russ. Appreciate it.
Sounds good, Tim. Well, again, appreciate the time and good luck. Best of luck with everything. Hopefully you don't see any more white And that goes for snow too, right?
Yeah, we don't get snow here.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. All white.
More,
Just keep it away.
more white
That's
than
right.
pink.
Keep it away. It'll be a bad thing.